Welcome to another episode of History Uncovered. Today, we're diving into the real story of the Peaky Blinders, far from the romanticized version we see on screen. The truth is grittier, rougher, and much less glamorous. Let's uncover the reality of Birmingham's most infamous gang. Between 1870 and 1900, the rapid industrialization of England gave rise to slums, poverty, and crime. In Manchester, there were the Scuttlers. In London, the Hooligans. And in Birmingham, Sloggers, a group of violent street gangs that evolved into the Peaky Blinders. Emerging from the poorest parts of Birmingham, the Peaky Blinders took control of areas like Bordesley and Small Heath. Unlike the well-organized criminal empire seen in the TV series, the real Peaky Blinders were a loosely connected gang, mainly engaging in street violence, theft, and illegal gambling. They started as a group of young men from working-class families who had little opportunity for social mobility. Many of them worked in low-paying industrial jobs or were unemployed, leading them to a life of crime as a way to escape poverty. Their activities were not well-coordinated but rather opportunistic. They would target individuals who were vulnerable, such as drunken men walking home alone, and rob them using extreme violence. Their weapons of choice included belt buckles, bricks, and metal rods, anything that could inflict serious injury. One thing the show gets right is their signature look. Tailored coats, button vests, leather boots, and, of course, their iconic peaked caps. But did they really sew razor blades into their caps? Probably not. Razor blades were an expensive luxury in the late 19th century, making it unlikely for gangsters to use them as weapons. The name Peaky Blinders likely comes from their habit of pulling their peaked caps low over one eye, blinding their opponents. Their distinctive fashion set them apart from other street gangs of the time. While many criminals dressed in rugged, practical clothing, the Peaky Blinders prided themselves on their elegant and dandyish appearance. Their outfits were a statement of status and defiance, showing that they were not just common thugs but a force to be reckoned with. Some of the most well-known Peaky Blinders included Thomas Gilbert, David Taylor, and baby-faced Fowler. Their crimes ranged from stealing bicycles to brutally attacking drunkards in the streets. Thomas MacLeod, a gang member, was sentenced to 9 months of hard labor after nearly beating a man to death. The gang's reputation for extreme violence even caught the attention of law enforcement. David Taylor, for example, was arrested at the young age of 13 for carrying a loaded firearm, a rare and serious offense at the time. Baby-faced Fowler was known for his aggressive behavior, often seen harassing and assaulting passers-by. Police reports from the era described the Peaky Blinders as a persistent menace, responsible for a wave of street crime that made certain areas of Birmingham unsafe. One of the gang's most infamous incidents occurred in 1895, when a group of Peaky Blinders engaged in a massive brawl in a local pub. When police arrived, they were met with fierce resistance, with gang members using fists, bottles, and even furniture to fight back. The police managed to arrest only one gang member, but the others retaliated by ambushing officers in the streets, beating them into submission and rescuing their captured comrade. By the early 1900s, the Peaky Blinders began expanding their criminal activities, protection rackets, bribery, and betting scams. But they weren't the only gang in town. A more powerful rival emerged: the Birmingham Boys, led by Billy Kimber. Unlike the Peaky Blinders, Kimber's gang controlled betting rings nationwide and had political influence. Kimber eventually crushed the Peaky Blinders, taking over Birmingham's criminal underworld. The Birmingham Boys were far more organized and ruthless, operating like a modern mafia rather than a street gang. They had strong connections with corrupt officials and used their influence to dominate illegal betting at horse racing tracks. When the Peaky Blinders attempted to muscle in on their territory, they found themselves completely outmatched. The Birmingham Boys systematically eliminated their rivals, either through intimidation or outright violence. By the 1920s, most of the original Peaky Blinders had disappeared, some recruited into World War I, others swallowed by stronger crime syndicates. However, the name Peaky Blinders lived on, becoming a term for violent youth gangs well into the 20th century. The show's creator, Stephen Knight, based the series on stories from his family, whose ancestors were bookmakers tied to the original Peaky Blinders. In reality, the influence of the Peaky Blinders faded as Birmingham underwent significant social and economic changes. Increased law enforcement, improved education, and greater employment opportunities meant that fewer young men turned to gang life. However, their legend continued to grow, especially as their name became synonymous with criminality in England. So, were the Peaky Blinders the powerful, cunning masterminds we see on TV? Not quite, but their story of survival, crime, and infamy continues to capture the imagination of millions. Their legacy, immortalized through television, has transformed them from small-time street thugs into cultural icons. But behind the fiction lies the reality, a tale of violence, desperation, and the harsh realities of life in 19th-century Birmingham. If you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to like and subscribe for more history uncovered. See you in the next episode.